My daughter criticizes me on my birthday. In front of everyone, she criticized me for not forgiving her unfaithful father, but now she's calling me crying, asking for my help to kick him out of her house. Last year was undoubtedly the most devastating year of my life. I accidentally discovered that my then-husband Liam was cheating on me with my best friend Abby. I had been away on a business trip for a few days, and the trip was supposed to last longer, but fortunately, work finished early, so I returned home sooner than expected. I wanted to surprise Liam, so I didn't bother to let him know in advance. When I got home, I saw Abby's car in the driveway, and I was confused. Abby had been my friend since our college days, and over the years, her husband and I, along with my husband, had become very good friends. However, I had never seen her come to my house without letting me know first. I checked my phone to see if she had called, or if my husband had sent a message to inform me of her presence, but there was no message. When I walked into the house, I heard some noises coming from the kitchen. Curious, I walked towards the sound, and that's when I saw Liam and Abby on our countertop, kissing and doing what you can imagine. They were so absorbed in each other that they didn't even realize I was there. I stood there frozen in shock at what I was witnessing. Seeing them together in the place where my husband and I had shared so many meals and family memories felt like a stab to the heart. My suitcase fell from my hands as I continued to watch in disbelief. My husband, the same man who hadn't been intimate with me for the past 3 months, the one who had been cruel to me, calling me things like pig, fat, and hippopotamus, though I wasn't overweight at all, was there, kissing and touching my best friend as if she were his wife. For months, he had made me feel so insecure, constantly criticizing my body, pressuring me, making me feel horrible about myself, thinking I was no longer good enough for him. But all that time, it wasn't about me. It was about him and his new partner. Without thinking, I grabbed my phone and started recording them. My hands were shaking, but I knew I needed proof of what I was seeing. Then, driven by pure anger, I went straight into the kitchen where they were still tangled up. There was a frying pan on the counter, and without hesitation, I grabbed it and threw it at my husband to get his attention. The frying pan hit him with a loud noise, and they both jumped in shock. Their heads turned, and their expressions were priceless. Their eyes widened in horror when they saw me there, holding my phone and recording every second of their shame. Abby desperately tried to cover her body, looking horrified as she tried to hide from the camera. I was so disgusted by what she had done that I walked straight up to her and slapped her hard across the face. The sound echoed through the kitchen, and she just stood there, stunned and humiliated. When Liam tried to intervene, I turned around and pushed him away. I didn't care. Through it all, I kept my phone in my hand, recording everything. I wanted them both to feel the pain I was feeling. But I wasn't finished. I stopped recording and immediately video called Abby's husband, Kyle. My heart was racing, but I knew it was the right thing to do. When he answered, he had no idea what was about to happen. I showed him the phone, revealing his wife half-naked, desperately trying to find her clothes, ashamed. I calmly told him exactly what had happened, that I had returned early from my trip and found his wife and my husband together in our kitchen. Kyle was stunned, unable to say a word, completely surprised, just as I had been when I first walked in. Liam tried to hide his face in shame as he yelled at me, saying I was going too far by humiliating them like that. I told Kyle that I was telling him because he deserved to know the truth, just as I had discovered it. No one should be blinded by such a betrayal. After that, I turned to Abby, who was still trying to apologize, trying to explain herself through tears, begging me to listen. But I told her to leave my house immediately, before I hurt her any further. No apology from her or my ex-husband could make up for the betrayal I had just discovered. You could say I have a bad temper, but I've worked hard all my life and built a successful career for myself. I've never really needed anyone to survive. So I would have been fine if my husband had just asked for a divorce. But the fact that he chose to sleep with my best friend in my own house, the house I paid for with my own money behind my back, was unforgivable. When Liam tried to apologize, saying he was sorry and asking for a second chance, promising he could be a better husband, I ignored him and started packing his things. I informed him that it was over and that I was going to divorce him, no matter what he said. When he heard this, he started shouting at me for mentioning the divorce, claiming it was insensitive to throw it in someone's face for such a foolish mistake. He even tried to grab my hands to stop me from packing, but that's when I threatened to call the police and have him removed from the house in front of all our neighbors. I knew how much he valued his reputation, so I also knew that this loser would never have stopped cheating on me or confessed to his affair if I hadn't discovered it with my own eyes. You see, at that moment, my ex-husband Liam wasn't even working. He had been fired from his job after being caught breaking some company rules. Although I don't want to go into the details of what he did, it was serious enough for one of his co-workers to report him. As a result, he was immediately fired. Meanwhile, I was the main breadwinner. He became a stay-at-home husband, and honestly, he wasn't a financial burden for us. I earned 3 times more than he did, so taking care of all the expenses didn't bother me. What I didn't realize at the time was how he was spending his free time. I suppose, in hindsight, it all makes sense. I had known for a while that Abby and Kyle were having problems in their marriage. With Liam home all day, and Abby also facing issues in her own marriage with Kyle, they probably had more than enough time to connect on a deeper level. To think that, while I worked hard to support our family, Liam was betraying me right under our own roof, in my own house, with someone I trusted completely. It's a kind of rage that's hard to describe with words. Meanwhile, Liam kept trying to argue with me, saying that divorce wasn't an option since we had been married for so long and that we should try couples therapy. He had the nerve to act like the victim, as if I had done something wrong by even suggesting that we get divorced. Liam's face turned red like a tomato, clearly nervous, and he stammered, saying that he had always been loyal to me all these years, so I shouldn't throw our marriage away over a mistake. He then tried to minimize it, saying it had only been the 4th time he and Abby had slept together, as if that somehow made it less of a betrayal. He then had the audacity to blame Abby for everything, claiming she had seduced him because her marriage with Kyle was failing. The level of denial and cowardice was incredible. I could barely stand to look at him. After much arguing, I managed to get Liam out of the house. As expected, with nowhere else to go, Liam turned to our adult daughter Mary for help. I've always known that Mary was closer to her father. She's been a daddy's girl as long as I can remember, and I never had a problem with that. I loved that they had such a strong bond, even if it meant they were a little closer than we were. When Mary called me, her voice was filled with confusion and concern. She asked me what had happened and told me how Liam had called her asking for help, saying I had kicked him out over a silly argument and now he was homeless. I told her the truth and sent her the video I had recorded of Liam and Abby together. I didn't want there to be any doubt in her mind about what her father had done. She deserved to know exactly why things had come to this point. Mary was furious with her father after seeing the proof I had. She told me she couldn't believe her dad could do something so disgusting and understood why I had kicked him out. However, despite her anger, she told me she still hoped I would reconsider, that maybe with time I could process everything and find a way to work things out. She assured me that she would take care of Liam for the time being, but no matter how hurt she was by his actions, she couldn't completely turn her back on him. In the days that followed, both Liam and Mary took turns calling me, each trying to convince me to forgive him for the sake of the family. It felt like emotional manipulation at its worst, especially coming from Liam, who was clearly using the love Mary had for him to sway her to his side. I saw through all of that, and it only made me angrier. I was furious with him for dragging our daughter into this mess, trying to take advantage of the love she had for him to get what he wanted. At the same time, it hurt deeply, and I was confused by Mary's stance. I couldn't understand why, in such a difficult moment, she seemed more concerned about supporting her father than me. It was as if she couldn't see the pain I was going through, and that hurt more than I can explain. Despite their efforts, I made the decision to go ahead with the divorce. I wasn't going to let myself be manipulated or feel guilty for staying in such a toxic marriage. So I filed for divorce from Liam, fully knowing that it was the right decision for me. At the same time, Kyle, Abby's husband, was also going through his own divorce process. He was as devastated as I was, and in that shared pain, we became very good friends. He was one of the few people who truly understood what I was going through, and having him to talk to made the situation a little more bearable. To be clear, we have always been just friends, and there has never been nor will there ever be anything romantic between us. Anyway, when I finally handed the divorce papers to Liam at Mary's house, he started begging me for forgiveness, making all sorts of promises about how he would never look at another woman again and how he was willing to remove Abby from our lives forever. It was pathetic. Honestly, seeing him try to fix the mess he had made was almost painful. Only when he realized I was serious about leaving him did he finally stop. Since Mary was present when I handed him the papers, she asked me to reconsider for his sake. She told me she had seen firsthand how much her dad loved me while growing up, and that the fact that he had slept with someone else, which she described as accidental, didn't mean he loved that woman. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was trying so hard to defend her father, minimizing the severity of what he had done, but I wasn't going to let that influence me. I told her there was nothing to reconsider. The fact was simple. Her father had betrayed me. Not just anyone, but with my best friend, in our own house. There was no going back from that. I wasn't going to waste time debating whether to give him another chance. He had destroyed our marriage, and I was determined to leave him. Mary tried to argue with me a little more, asking if I would really be happy without him in my life. I told her yes, I would definitely be happy because now I wouldn't have to worry about my husband sleeping with someone else while I worked and brought in the money. This wasn't a decision I had taken lightly. I had made up my mind, and no amount of pleading or reasoning would change that. The divorce process turned out to be surprisingly simple. Early in our marriage, I had insisted on a prenuptial agreement, and thanks to that, Liam couldn't touch any of my assets. To make sure everything went smoothly, I hired the best lawyer in the city, someone who knew exactly how to handle cases like mine. From the start, it was clear that my victory in court was inevitable. When the divorce was finally finalized, I felt like a huge weight had been lifted off me, as if I had been freed from a prison I hadn't even realized I had been in for so long. I had been blindly in love with Liam, unable to see how much better my life could be without him. It was as if his toxic presence had been pulling me down, suffocating me. But now, I was free to live my life on my own terms, without the constant pain and betrayal hanging over my head. As the news of what had happened between Liam and Abby spread throughout our circle, more and more people began reaching out to me. Friends, family, even acquaintances, showing their support and letting me know they were there for me. Even Liam's own family made it clear that I had done the right thing by divorcing him. They were furious with him, completely disgusted by his behavior. In a way, their support made me feel validated. It was a relief to know I wasn't alone in this, that people saw through Liam's actions and were on my side. However, the only person who continued to stand by Liam's side was our daughter, Mary. Somehow, despite everything, she still felt sorry for him. Maybe it was the lifelong bond she had with her father, or maybe it was her way of dealing with the whole situation. This year, I decided to go all out for my birthday. It was my first birthday as a single woman after being married to Liam for so long, and I felt like I needed to celebrate my newfound freedom. My friends and I planned a big party with catering service and an invite list of 50 to 60 people. I wanted it to be a night to remember. Naturally, Kyle was also on the guest list, especially since he had finally managed to divorce Abby after months and months of trials, and we had become good friends throughout the process. I invited Mary but made it clear that Liam was not welcome. He still lived with Mary, but there was no way I was going to let him ruin my night on my birthday. When the party started, everyone seemed to be having a great time. People were drinking, the energy was fantastic, and it felt like the perfect way to mark this new chapter in my life. When it came time to cut the cake, some of my close friends gave emotional speeches talking about how proud they were of me for getting through such a difficult year. They spoke about the betrayal I had endured and how happy I seemed now. But suddenly, without any warning, Mary stood up and announced that she had some words she wanted to say. I could tell she had been drinking. She seemed a bit unsteady. But then again, many of the guests were a little drunk by this point. I thought she just wanted to wish me a happy birthday, or maybe share some sweet memories. However, Mary began to criticize me in front of everyone. She talked about how disappointed she was in me for destroying my years of marriage with Liam and how devastated he was. She continued, telling everyone how, growing up, she had always believed her parents had the perfect marriage, and how I had ruined that dream by leaving Liam without even trying to fix our problems. She called me a selfish mother, accusing me of only thinking of myself when I decided to file for divorce. Before I could even process what was happening, people started defending me. My friends had seen firsthand what had happened and weren't going to let Mary's words go unchallenged. Kyle also spoke up, telling Mary that she had no right to be angry with me when it was her father who had betrayed me in the most painful way possible. He reminded her that as my daughter, and as a woman, she should be more understanding and supportive of me, instead of blaming me where it didn't belong. Mary tried to respond, clearly upset. Some of the guests even started booing her loudly, clearly horrified by how she was treating me, especially on a night like this. I told Mary, "I think you've forgotten something important. From the beginning, it was me who supported this family. Your father, Liam, moved into my house after we got married, and while I was pregnant with you, he never truly assumed his role as a father. When I went into labor, I was the one who endured hours of pain to bring you into this world. And when it came to raising you, I was the one who stayed home to take care of you, making sure you had everything you needed. Even when I went back to work, I was the one who hired a nanny to look after you. I was the primary provider, working long hours to give you the comfortable life you came to enjoy. My income paid for the roof over our heads, the food on our table, and all the luxuries that you and your dad benefited from." I didn't stop there. I continued to remind Mary of how, when she started looking for job opportunities, I was the one who used my connections to help her get an internship and eventually a job. I did all of that for her while Liam did nothing. He wasn't there to guide or support her in ways that mattered. He was the fun dad who spent only a few hours a day with her, and somehow, she saw him as a hero. And now, after everything I had done for her and our family, I was the one being blamed for finally defending myself and choosing to leave a toxic marriage. I told her she needed to leave tonight. This night was supposed to be for me, but instead, she had caused a scene. Before leaving, Mary threatened to cut all contact with me forever. I told her that was fine as long as she was happy with her decision. At that moment, as painful as it was, I knew that if Mary couldn't understand why I had to leave Liam, then maybe distance was what we both needed. Watching her leave my party was one of the hardest things I've had to do, but deep down, I knew I had to choose myself this time. It wasn't about being selfish. It was about standing up for the life and happiness I deserved, no matter who tried to make me feel guilty for it. Since the incident at the party, some of my family members who were present at the event have reached out to me, saying that maybe I was a bit harsh with my daughter. They urged me to reach out to her and apologize, as she's going through a lot as well. They feel that I humiliated her by saying all those things in front of everyone, when I could have spoken to her privately. So now, I'm the bad one for finally standing up to my daughter. Update 1. I didn't expect so many strangers to care about me, all offering their unconditional support. It comforts me to know that I didn't do anything wrong as a mother. Sometimes, I feel overwhelmed by guilt about why Mary is so obsessed with our marriage. Honestly, I don't know. She's an only child, and she probably never imagined that her parents would get divorced, as happened to her friends' parents. Honestly, I never thought I'd end up divorcing my ex either, but Liam's actions left me with no choice. I simply couldn't stay in that situation. I've realized that no matter how much we try to protect our children from pain, staying in a toxic marriage would have caused more harm to everyone involved, including Mary. I hope that one day she can understand that my decision wasn't about abandoning the family, but rather about preserving my dignity and mental well-being. For now, I'm focusing on my healing and embracing this new chapter in my life. It's a process, but I feel stronger with each passing day, especially with all the support from you all. Thank you so much for validating my experience and helping me feel that I'm not alone in this. Update 2. It's been a month and a half since my last update, and for everyone who was asking about Liam and Abby, I finally have some interesting news for you. I had mentioned before that Abby and Kyle divorced right before my birthday party. The reason their divorce took so long, unlike mine, was because Abby and Kyle have 3 kids together and never signed a prenuptial agreement. However, what worked in Kyle's favor was that he had legitimate proof that Abby had been unfaithful, which meant she couldn't win spousal support. However, due to the children they have together, Abby and her lawyer fought hard and won child support. Since Kyle earns quite well, the child support for the 3 kids was more than enough to cover their needs. Abby won't even have to work, and she'll probably be able to get by with a part-time job if necessary. Now, regarding my daughter Mary, who had cut off all contact with me since the party, she called me crying yesterday. It turns out that a few days after my birthday party, Liam shocked her by announcing that Abby and her 3 kids would be staying with them for a few weeks. Mary was in shock because Liam made this decision without even consulting her. And since it was her house, she had to take care of all the expenses, as neither Liam nor Abby were working. Liam asked her to learn to accept his new family and talked about how they could all start fresh together. When Abby and her kids moved in, they acted as if it were their house, not Mary's. Mary, who works from home, lost all her privacy. Liam and Abby often left the kids with her to take care of, without asking for her permission, and went off for hours to enjoy romantic time together. Mary was on the verge of desperation and called me for help to get rid of Liam and Abby. She said she couldn't live with her father anymore and needed me to talk to them to make them leave because she was afraid to face her dad alone. I was furious. After weeks of silence and the humiliation she put me through at my birthday party, Mary had the audacity to ask for my help without even having the decency to apologize first. I firmly told her that she should have considered the consequences of supporting her unfaithful dad instead of me. I made it clear that she deserved this for choosing his side, and that she should stick to her words and never contact me again. Since then, she has been bombarding me with calls and messages, calling me a bad mother for not helping her, and insisting that as a mother, it's my duty to defend her. Update 3. I just wanted to say that I agree with the general consensus. My daughter Mary is very weak when it comes to her dad. I don't understand why she's so blinded by him. However, I don't plan to help her in any way. It's obvious that Liam and Abby are using her as a free babysitter, and they'll keep doing it unless she stands up for herself and kicks them out. It's incredibly disgusting and disappointing that Liam allowed Abby to move in with them, especially considering how passionately Mary defended him at my birthday party. Now it's clear that my decision to divorce Liam was the right one. He definitely would have continued his affair with Abby if I hadn't left him. After thinking about some of her suggestions, I decided to send Mary an email to clear things up once and for all. Here's what I wrote to her. Hello, Mary. I'm still upset about how you treated me, but that doesn't change the fact that now you need to stand up for yourself. It's your house, and you shouldn't have to put up with Dad and Abby acting like they own the place. It's time to take control and make it clear that they can't stay there. You need to set clear boundaries and stand firm. If you don't, they'll continue taking advantage of you as a source of money forever. Your dad is not your responsibility. I hope you find the strength to do what's right for yourself in the future. If you ever truly realize the mistake of your actions and want to apologize, I'll be here. Until then, take care. I also reached out to Kyle to inform him about the current situation with Abby and how she had been neglecting the kids by forcing Mary to take care of them. It turns out that he had recently discovered that Abby and Liam were living together, something Abby had been hiding since moving in with Liam. She had made sure Kyle couldn't pick up the kids at Mary's house, and they always met in neutral locations. She even instructed the kids to lie about where they lived and not mention Mary's house or that Liam lived with them. When Kyle found out from mutual friends that Abby was living at Mary's house, he was shocked and unsure whether the information was true. After I confirmed the details for him, he made a decision. He and his lawyer are now planning to fight for full custody of the kids to permanently take them out of Abby's care. If Kyle succeeds, Abby will lose the child support she's been relying on. With Abby and Liam both unemployed, their financial situation could get even worse without that support. If Mary decides to kick them out, they could end up on the streets. I just hope my daughter will finally do the right thing. Update 4. I have a lot to share, so get ready for a longer read than my previous updates. The good news is that Kyle has won full custody of his kids. It turns out that Abby didn't have a stable job or a proper home to raise them, and the fact that she was essentially using my daughter Mary as a full-time babysitter became a key point in the judge's decision. And when I say full-time babysitter, I don't mean just a few hours a day. No, the situation was much worse. I'll tell you more details about that, but the important thing here is that Kyle finally got what he wanted. His kids now live with him, and he no longer has to pay child support to Abby. Additionally, he's thrilled to be able to spend all the time possible with them. Kyle is an excellent father, and one of his biggest concerns was the well-being of his kids, especially considering that their mother was more focused on continuing her affair with Liam than fulfilling her role as a mother. Now, regarding Mary's role as a babysitter, I found out that both Abby and Liam had been using the child support money that Kyle paid them to go on vacation. Yes, you read that right. They went on a trip, like some sort of unofficial honeymoon, because, as far as I know, they haven't married. They left the kids with Mary without asking or even giving her the option to have a say. They just decided to go and left Mary in charge of the kids for several days. I found out all of this because Mary had been complaining to some relatives, asking for help to care for Abby's kids while she and Liam were away. None of our relatives wanted to help her since they don't consider the kids part of the family, and it wasn't their responsibility. Mary had to bear it all alone until Liam and Abby finally came back. Apparently, she didn't want to call Child Protective Services because, according to her, she didn't want the kids to end up in the foster system or living with strangers. However, when they returned, Mary made it clear that they needed to leave her house. The ironic thing is that, in the end, it seems Mary learned the lesson the hard way. As far as I know, Mary is now determined to kick them out of her house. She can't stand the situation anymore, and I don't blame her. After all, it's her home, and she has every right to decide who can or can't stay. The bad news for my ex-husband and my ex-best friend is that, in addition to losing Kyle's child support, they're now forced to find a place to live and, of course, get a job. So far, neither of them is working, and their financial situation is about to fall apart. Mary gave them an ultimatum a week ago, and although they still haven't left, the pressure is building. It's only a matter of time before Liam and Abby have to pack their bags and face the reality of their bad decisions. The irony is that if they had acted with just a little respect and responsibility, they might not be in such a desperate situation. But as the saying goes, time puts everyone in their place, and now they are paying the consequences of their actions. I still haven't spoken to Mary directly, but some relatives have kept me updated on everything. It's incredible to see how the situation has turned around. Just a few months ago, Mary was defending her father to the bitter end, publicly humiliating me and blaming me for destroying our family. Now, she's dealing with the consequences of supporting Liam and Abby. Although it hurts to see her in this position, I know this experience has taught her a valuable lesson. Update 5. I'll be brief, but I wanted to let you know that finally Abby and Liam have had to leave Mary's house. They didn't take her threats seriously, but since she no longer had the kids with her, who now live with Kyle, she had no problem kicking them out. She simply changed the locks when they left, and the rest, as they say, is history. As for me, don't worry. I changed the locks on my house a long time ago and have cameras installed. If they try anything, let's just say it won't end well for them. This is not a good place for home invaders.